So if you've been thinking about buying a home lately, chances are your news feed is just full of headlines that might make you feel a little, well, anxious.
Yeah, you hear about soaring interest rates, prices through the roof, almost nothing for sale.
Right. Or even whispers of a market crash.
Yeah.
It's a lot to take in, isn't it?
It really is.
But what if you could kind of cut through all that noise, get a really clear, concise picture of what's actually happening, specifically for you?
Well, that's exactly what we're trying to do here today. That's the mission of this deep dive.
Okay, so today we're really zeroing in on single-family homes right here in Northeast Florida.
Yep, that means St. John's, Duval, Putnam, Flagler, and Nassau counties. It's a really key area.
A dynamic region for sure.
And our goal for you today is basically to give you a side-by-side look at this market. Think 5 years before COVID hit.
Okay,
What happened during the pandemic, craziness,
right.
and what's happening now, currently. We'll break down the changes, keep it simple. Focusing on the big things, homes sold, inventory.
How many houses were actually for sale?
Exactly. What prices we're doing, and of course the big word, mortgage interest rates.
Okay, so let's maybe get a quick lay of the land first, just a preview.
Yeah.
Years ago, things felt, well, more balanced, right?
Definitely.
Then during COVID, boom, homes sold incredibly fast, prices jumped like crazy, and rates were like historically low.
Rock bottom.
And now, the market seems to be cooling off a bit, finding its footing again.
Yeah, it's rebalancing. You've got more homes to choose from. Price increases have slowed way down.
But the interest rates are higher, much higher.
That's the trade-off, yeah.
Okay, let's really unpack this then. Let's start at the beginning of the story. Let's rewind.
Right.
Back to that time, maybe 2015 to 2019. A lot of people remember it as feeling more, I don't know, sensible or maybe healthy. What did that market actually look like?
It really was a pretty balanced market, especially earlier in that window, say around 2015. We often talk about months of supply. It basically tells you how long it would take to sell all the homes currently listed if nothing new came on the market.
Right, a measure of inventory versus demand.
Exactly. And a balanced market usually sits around 5 to 6 months. Back in 2015, Northeast Florida was pretty much right there, smack in that sweet spot.
So healthy inventory levels.
Yeah. Now, 2019, things were still busy. It was actually a record year for sales. Then 31,881 homes sold.
Wow, okay.
But inventory had already started to tighten up a bit. It dropped to about 2.6 months of supply.
So already hinting at things getting tighter later on.
A little bit, yeah. Still, way more choice than what came during COVID.
And what about prices during that pre-COVID stretch?
Prices were climbing, but it was a very steady, manageable increase. I think 2015, the median price, that's the middle price point, right?
Half sold for more, half for less.
Exactly. It was around $170,000. By 2019, it had risen to about $234,000.
Okay, so a decent jump, but over 4 or 5 years.
Right. It works out to about 5–6% per year. Very sustainable, very predictable growth. If you bought a house for $200,000 in 2015, it might have been worth around $270,000 by 2019. Gradual. You just weren't seeing those crazy bidding wars back then.
Made planning easier, I imagine.
Definitely. And interest rates played a big role, too.
What were they like then?
Pretty good, actually. Generally hovering around 4%, maybe 4.5%. In 2019, the average was about 3.9%.
Which sounds high now, but historically.
Historically, very low. I mean, compare that to the 80s when rates were well over 10%.
Right, so 4% made borrowing pretty affordable.
Exactly. It kept demand solid without making things, unobtainable for most people.
So summing up that pre-COVID era, what's the big picture, the market health?
It was robust, solid demand thanks to jobs moving here, people migrating in.
Florida's always been popular.
Always. And there was a decent supply of homes, though, as we said, it started tightening a bit towards the end. But experts really saw it as balanced, not tilted heavily one way or the other.
So not a crazy seller's market, not really a buyer's market either?
Pretty much. People could take their time, do their inspections, and crucially, lending was solid. Banks were careful.
Not like 2008.
Not at all. No wave of risky loans, very few foreclosures or short sales. So those price increases, they were backed by real demand, good jobs, solid buyers. No signs of a crash back then. It was just stable, predictable.
Okay, that sounds like a much calmer world compared to what came next.
Oh, yeah.
Because here's where it gets, well, really interesting, right? COVID hits. There's that brief pause in spring 2020. Everyone holds their breath.
Right. Everything just stopped for a minute.
And then, boom, The housing market, especially here in Florida, just exploded. Suddenly our homes are everything. Offices, schools,
And people
gyms.
needed more space. Desperately.
And you had that wave of people moving to Florida from other states, maybe looking for more room, lower costs, different lifestyle.
Absolutely. It was this perfect storm, people wanting more space, needing home offices, and at the exact same time, fewer people wanted to sell.
Why was that? Virus fears? Uncertainty.
Both. Health concerns about people coming through their homes, plus just general economic anxiety. So the number of homes for sale just plummeted
So demand is surging, supply is shrinking.
drastically. By the end of 2020, Northeast Florida had only about 1.5 months of supply. That's incredibly low. Record territory.
Wow.
Just think, end of 2020, only about 4,500 homes on the market. A year before, over 8,500.
Almost half, like you said, empty shelves at the grocery store.
Exactly. But with more shoppers than ever lining up outside. So buyers faced insane competition. Homes were selling, often within days.
I'm on a flash.
And sales volume. Despite a global pandemic, it actually went up. About 35,000 homes sold here in 2020, over 8% more than 2019.
That's wild.
And 2021 was even crazier. Jacksonville metro resales jumped something like 32% compared to 2020. Just staggering numbers.
Okay, so demand way up, supply way down.
Yeah.
What did that do to prices? I think we all know the answer.
Yeah, they skyrocketed. By December 2020, the median price here was already around $267,000. That's up 11% in just 1 year.
And that was just the start.
Oh, yeah. 2021 saw prices climbing about 15% each year. So by the end of 2021, your typical home was selling in the low $300,000. The average resale hit $321,600 late that year. Compare that to around $276,000 in 2019.
Huge jumps. And people were paying over asking price, right? Bidding wars.
Absolutely. Full-blown bidding wars. In December 2020, almost 19% of homes sold for over the list price. That was a 55% increase in overbidding compared to the year before. Buyers were caught in a frenzy.
What was fueling all this? Besides the low inventory.
The other massive piece was interest rates. They plunged.
Ah, right. The Fed lowered rates to boost the economy.
Exactly. And mortgage rates followed. By late 2020, you could get a 30-year mortgage for around 2.7%, maybe 3%, all-time lows.
That's practically free money compared to historical rates.
It really felt like it to a lot of buyers. Think about it, 3.9% in 2019, now under 3%. That dramatically lowered monthly payments.
Making those higher prices seem more affordable, at least on a monthly basis.
Precisely. It enabled people to stretch their budgets. And a lot of renters saw this as their chance to buy, which just added even more demand pressure, pushing prices even higher.
So the overall mood during COVID, frenzied, seems like the right word.
Absolutely frenzied.
Homes flying off the market in days, dozens of offers, lowest inventory ever recorded.
Yeah.
You mentioned statewide listings dropping from like 133,000 to under 50,000?
Yeah, it was a nationwide phenomenon, but Florida felt it intensely. Here in Northeast Florida, we dipped below 2 months of supply. Unheard of.
So instead of the crash people feared, we got this insane boom.
Driven by those rock-bottom rates, super high demand, and practically no supply. Builders couldn't keep up. Existing owners weren't selling.
And crucially, different from 2008, right? This wasn't about bad loans.
Totally different. 2008 was too many homes, risky lending. This was the opposite, a severe shortage of homes, and buyers, for the most part, were financially solid, qualifying under stricter rules.
Prices shot up, but it was pure supply and demand pressure.
Exactly. Which leads to the next question, doesn't it?
Yeah. What happens when a pace like that just can't be sustained? That kind of surge had to end sometime.
It did.
So let's talk about the cool down, the rebalancing. 2022 up to now, that era of nearly free money. Well, that sale ended, didn't it?
It definitely ended. Borrowing got a lot more expensive fast.
What happened?
Well, inflation started taking off, globally and here. So starting in 2022, the Federal Reserve began hiking interest rates pretty aggressively to cool things down.
And mortgage rates just followed right along.
They sure did. They climbed rapidly. By mid-2022, your average 30-year mortgage was around 5%.
Okay, already a big jump from under 3%.
And it kept going. 2023 averaged about 6.8%. And now, late 23 into 24, we're seeing rates hovering around 6%, maybe 7%.
Highest in, what, over 20 years?
Yeah, highest in a long time. And that has a huge impact on how much house you can afford.
Explain that impact, like on a monthly payment.
Sure, took a $300,000 loan. The difference in the monthly payment between a 3% rate and a 7% rate is, well, it's substantial. Hundreds of dollars more each month.
Ouch. So fewer people can afford to buy at today's prices with today's rates.
Exactly. Or they have to adjust their expectations, maybe look for a smaller home or in a less expensive area.
Wow.
It naturally just cooled off that intense buying frenzy. It really shifted buyer behavior almost overnight.
So higher rates plus the prices that already jumped.
Yeah.
What did that do to the number of sales?
Sales started to come down from that peak in 2021. Here in Northeast Florida, 2023 sales were down about 22% compared to the year before.
Significant drop.
Yeah, 2023 actually had the fewest homes sold in this area since way back in 2017. But it's important to keep perspective.
How so?
Slower is relative, right? It's slower compared to the absolutely breakneck pace of 2021. Homes are still selling, it's just not that immediate, sight unseen, multiple offer situation anymore.
The buyers have more breathing room.
Exactly. More breathing room. You don't necessarily have to make an offer the minute a house hits the market. And sellers, they're sometimes willing to negotiate again. Imagine that.
A return to normalcy, maybe? And what about inventory? The number of homes for sale, that was the big problem during COVID.
That's probably the best news for buyers right now. Inventory has bounced back significantly from those crazy lows.
How much?
As of mid-2024, Northeast Florida supply is much healthier. We're seeing around 4.0 to maybe 6.3 months of supply.
Wow, that's back to, or even above, those pre-pandemic balance levels you mentioned.
Exactly. It's the highest inventory we've seen in over 5 years. Just look at the numbers. June 2024, roughly 7,764 active listings. End of 2020, only about 4,500.
Big difference. More choice.
A lot more choice. And it's happening because more people are deciding to sell now. Maybe they put it off during the pandemic. Buyer demand has eased because of the higher rates. And builders have been working hard to catch up, too.
So more homes, less frantic buying. What does that mean for buyers?
More options, less pressure. You might even see some price reductions on listings now, which was almost unheard of back in 2021. The head of NEFAR recently said the market is back to a stabilized level between sellers and buyers.
And homes are sitting on the market longer.
Yeah, maybe a month, sometimes more, not just a week or two like before.
Okay, so inventory up, sales pace slower.
Yeah.
What about prices now? Have they crashed?
That's the key point. They haven't crashed. Price growth has slowed way down. But prices themselves have mostly just leveled off, kind of like hitting a high plateau.
So not going up rapidly, but not falling either?
Pretty much. 2022 still saw some quick rises early on, but by 2023 and into 2024, growth became really modest. The median price here now, early 2025, is maybe $385,000 to $395,000.
Okay. How does that compare to last year?
Only about 1% higher than a year ago. The actual peak median was around $403,000 back in mid-2024, and we're hovering just below that now.
So steady, but still much higher than before COVID.
Oh, yeah. Overall, prices today are roughly 40% higher than they were pre-COVID. Remember that $234,000 median in 2019? Now it's closer to $400,000.
Wow. So why haven't prices fallen more, with rates being so much higher?
Great question. A big reason is that most current homeowners aren't desperate to sell. Well, think about it. If you bought or refinanced during the pandemic, you probably locked in a super low mortgage rate, maybe 3% or even less.
Right, the golden handcuffs.
Exactly. Why sell and give up that cheap mortgage to buy something else at 7% unless you absolutely have to? Plus, because prices rose so much, most homeowners have a ton of equity.
Equity being the value they own outright.
Right. The difference between the home's value and what they owe. With lots of equity, they aren't underwater. They aren't forced to sell at a loss like many were in 2008. So if they don't get the price they want, many just decide not to sell.
That makes sense. It props up prices because supply isn't being forced onto the market cheap.
Precisely. That lack of distressed sellers is fundamental to why values have held up so well.
But affordability must be tough, right? High prices and high rates.
It absolutely is. Affordability is a real challenge right now. The official home affordability index here has worsened quite a bit. It's just harder for the average family to swing the median-priced home.
So how are buyers adapting? What are you seeing?
Buyers are definitely adjusting. Maybe looking in less expensive neighborhoods, maybe considering a smaller home than they initially wanted, or they're negotiating harder on price where they can.
Any creative financing solutions people are using?
Yeah, we're seeing things like rate buy-downs, where the seller or buyer pays upfront points to lower the interest rate for the first few years, Or adjustable rate mortgages, ARMs, are making a bit of a comeback because they offer a lower initial rate.
So the market isn't that red-hot frenzy anymore.
Not at all. It's much more normal,
Uh,
which honestly feels safer and more predictable for everyone involved, even if it presents different challenges.
Okay, so this brings us right back to that big question, the elephant in the room.
Is it going to crash?
Yeah. Is the housing market going to crash? Given everything we've just walked through, what's the big picture takeaway?
Well, based on all the data we have for Northeast Florida, it really doesn't look like a crash is happening. It looks much more like a market finding its balance again.
Define crash versus balancing out.
A crash implies prices plummeting,
Right.
right? Falling fast, maybe 20, 30%, like we saw in some areas back in 2008. That is just not what's happening now.
Prices are mostly steady, maybe up slightly year over year.
Exactly. Roughly steady. And inventory, while it's higher, which is good for buyers, it's moving back towards normal, healthy levels. It's not a glut of unsold homes piling up.
And the homeowner situation is different from '08 too, you said.
Fundamentally different. Most owners have those fixed low-rate mortgages. They have significant equity. They aren't facing foreclosure waves. Lending standards have been much stricter for years.
So no wave of defaults forcing prices down.
Exactly. So the experts aren't saying collapsing. They're saying stabilize. It's the market catching its breath after that absolutely wild sprint during COVID. It's a healthy adjustment, really. A necessary one.
Okay, that really helps put today's often scary headlines into some much-needed perspective.
Hope so.
So let's boil this down, directly for you, the listener, who might be feeling worried or confused. Takeaway number one.
The market isn't crashing. It's stabilizing.
All right. Prices here in Northeast Florida are high, no doubt, but they're holding steady, not falling off a cliff. Think of it like you ran up a steep hill really fast.
And now you're walking on a plateau. Still high up, but level.
Exactly. Homes are still a valuable investment here.
Yeah.
They just aren't seeing that crazy, unsustainable growth anymore.
That's right.
Takeaway number two for you?
You have more homes to choose from now. A lot more.
This is huge. During that COVID frenzy, it was slim pickings. You had to rush, make compromises.
Desperate offers, waive inspections sometimes.
Yeah, risky stuff now.
Yeah.
Inventory is back to healthy levels. The most homes for sale since 2019 around here.
Which means you have time. Time to shop, compare, find something that actually fits your needs, your life. That is absolutely good news for you as a buyer.
Definitely. Okay, takeaway three. Interest rates. The big hurdle.
Yeah, rates are higher. No sugarcoating that. It impacts your monthly payment, your buying power, but there's a silver lining.
What's that?
Those higher rates are exactly what cooled down the crony competition.
Right. Fewer bidding wars.
Way fewer bidding wars. You're much more likely now to pay closer to the list price, maybe even negotiate below list, especially if a seller is motivated.
And you can put contingencies back in your offer, like inspections.
Absolutely. You can protect yourself again with home inspections, appraisals, financing contingencies, things that were almost impossible to include just a couple of years ago.
That's a big deal for buyer safety.
Huge. And remember that saying, marry the house, date the rate. Meaning the house is the long-term commitment. Rates go up and down. If rates fall significantly in the future, you can likely refinance to get a lower payment. But you want to make sure you love the house itself.
Good point. Okay, takeaway four. Prices are high compared to years ago.
They are. But you also have to consider that incomes have risen too in many fields. And maybe more importantly, think about rents.
Rents have gone up a lot too.
Significantly. So if you're renting now, you're likely paying more than you were. Owning locks in your main housing costs your principal and interest payment aside from taxes and insurance, which can change.
And Northeast Florida itself, still desirable.
Incredibly desirable. People keep moving here for jobs, for retirement, for the lifestyle. That underlying demand provides strong support for home values long term.
Plus, you mentioned we still haven't built enough houses.
Right. There's still a long-term housing shortage from that decade or so after 2008 when building really slowed down. That fundamental lack of supply is another reason prices haven't crashed. You're buying into a market people want to be in. That's good for long-term value.
Makes sense. And final takeaway. Let's address that 2008 ghost again.
Right. There is no glut of foreclosures or risky loans about to hit the market like back then. Today's situation is just fundamentally different.
Because buyers are in better shape financially. Stricter lending.
Exactly. Most people who bought recently got fixed, low rates, and qualified under tough standards. They have equity. We aren't seeing masses of defaults. So that cascade of cheap, distressed homes that could flood the market and crash prices. It's just not on the horizon, barring some completely unforeseen economic catastrophe.
Okay, so putting it all together, if you're thinking about buying in Northeast Florida right now, the message is,
Don't let the scary headlines paralyze you.
yeah, the market has changed dramatically since the pandemic peak, but in many ways it's actually better for buyers now.
You have choice. You have breathing room, less pressure.
Yes, you'll probably pay a higher interest rate today than you would have 2 years ago. That's the reality.
But you also won't likely have to offer $50,000 over asking, waive all your protections, and pray you get the house.
Right. And prices aren't in free fall. They've stabilized. So the risk of buying and immediately losing a chunk of equity is much lower now than if you'd bought at the absolute peak of the frenzy.
Much lower. It's a more predictable environment.
So thinking long term, buying a home is still fundamentally a long-term investment, right?
Absolutely. History shows pretty consistently that over 5, 10, 20 years, Florida real estate tends to appreciate well. Even with all these ups and downs, people who bought 5 or more years ago have seen really substantial gains.
And looking forward, what kind of market should we expect? More like.
Probably more like that pre-COVID period we talked about, a return to a more normal, steady market. Modest single-digit price increases per year. More balance.
And that kind of stability after the roller coaster, that's actually good news.
It really is. It's healthy.
So final thought for a listener.
Take a deep breath. Seriously, the sky's not falling on home values here. What we got wasn't a crash, it was a cool down, a needed adjustment.
Focus on your own situation.
Exactly. Focus on what you can comfortably afford with today's rates and prices. Don't try to perfectly time the market bottom or top. Even the pros can't do that reliably. If the numbers work for you and you plan to stay put for a while, you're buying into a region with a really bright future.
That long-term view really is key, isn't it? And it reminds us that home ownership over time is still one of the best ways for most people to build wealth.
It absolutely is.
And you don't have to figure all this out alone.
Definitely not. Work with a good local realtor who really knows the neighborhoods and talk to a knowledgeable lender who can explain all your financing options.
They can help you navigate these changes, maybe find those creative solutions, find the right fit. So hopefully, with this deep dive, you feel a bit more confident.
That's the goal. Understand how inventory, prices, rates have shifted.
Right. So you can make a decision based on information, not anxiety. So happy home hunting. And seriously, don't let the noise in the news scare you away from reaching your goals.